Vietnam Affair, A Tale of Love and War, by Sylvester Scoforu. Chapter 1. The Arrival. The heat in Vietnam wasn't just hot, it was alive. It wrapped around you like a wet wool blanket soaked in gasoline, pressing down on your chest until every breath felt like you were drowning in warm soup. The humidity was so thick you could see it hanging in the air, a shimmering haze that made everything beyond 50 yards look like a fever dream. And the mosquitoes, Jesus Christ, the mosquitoes. They weren't like the ones back home in Mobile. These bastards were as big as horseflies, with a mean streak to match. They'd bite right through your fatigues if you let them, and the welts they left behind would itch for days, sometimes getting infected in this godforsaken swamp we were supposed to be liberating. I'm Airman First Class Michael Brennan, United States Air Force, and I had no business being where I was. Most Air Force guys were sitting in air-conditioned offices or flying high above the jungle canopy. Not me. Some geniuses, at command, decided the Army needed forward air controllers embedded with their infantry units, and lucky me, I drew the short straw. They attached me to the 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, the Wolfhounds, they called themselves. Good men, every one of them, even if they never let me forget I was in the Air Force. "Hey, flyboy," Sergeant Martinez would say, grinning through his thick mustache. "You sure you didn't take a wrong turn on your way to the officers' club?" "Shut up, Martinez," I'd shoot back. "Who pulled your ass out of the fire at Duc Pho?" Yeah. 1 time, 3 times. Who's counting?" We all were. In Vietnam, you counted everything. Days until rotation, rounds in your magazine, friends are still breathing, and letters from home. God, those letters. Sarah wrote to me every single day. Sarah Whitmore, my girl back in Mobile, with her honey blonde hair and smile that could light up the darkest Alabama night. We'd been together since junior year of high school, and when my draft number came up and I enlisted, she promised she'd wait. She'd write every day, she said, and she did. Her first letter arrived 2 weeks after I got to Vietnam. I can still remember holding it in my hands, the paper already damp from the humidity, her handwriting looping across the envelope in blue ink. She'd drawn a little heart next to my name. "You don't have to put a stamp on it," she wrote in that first letter. "Just write 'free' in the upper right corner where the stamp would go. That's what they told us at the USO meeting. The military mail goes free. Write me back soon. Baby, I miss you so much already. Mobile isn't the same without you. I drive by your house sometimes just to feel closer to you. Your mama invited me in for sweet tea last week. She's doing okay, but I can tell her worries. We all do. Please be safe. I love you, more than words can say. Yours forever, Sarah." Forever. That word meant something different in Vietnam than it did back home. The letters came like clockwork for months. Every day, sometimes 2 a day. She'd tell me about her job at the diner, about the gossip around town, about the weather, and the flowers blooming in her mama's garden. She'd tell me she loved me, that she was counting the days until I came home, that she was saving up for our wedding. I'd read those letters over and over until the paper started to fall apart, until I had whole passages memorized. I kept them all in a wooden cigar box I'd traded for with a South Vietnamese officer. It was made of teak, with an intricate dragon carving on the lid. I kept it under my cot, and every night before I went to sleep, I'd pull out the most recent letter and read it one more time. The guys gave me shit about it, of course. Brennan's rereading his love letters. Private Johnson would announce to the tent. "Leave him alone," Corporal Davis would say. "At least somebody loves his ugly ass." "Your mama loves me," I'd reply. And we'd all laugh, because what else could you do? But they understood. Most of them had someone back home, too. A wife, a girlfriend, and a family waiting. Those letters were the only thing that kept us tethered to the world we'd left behind, the world we were supposedly fighting to get back to. Chapter 2. Combat. It was late July when everything went to shit. We'd been on patrol for 3 days, humping through the jungle in full gear, the heat so oppressive that 2 guys had already collapsed from heat exhaustion. We'd finally broken out of the tree line into a series of rice paddies, the water murky and stinking of buffalo shit and rotting vegetation. The paddies stretched out before us like a patchwork quilt of green and brown, separated by narrow dikes barely wide enough to walk on. "I hate this," Martinez muttered beside me. "We're sitting ducks out here." He was right. The rice paddies offered no cover, no concealment. If Charlie wanted to hit us, this was the place to do it. But the command wished us to check out a village on the far side, so we went. We were halfway across the second paddy when the world exploded. The first burst of gunfire came from the tree line to our right, maybe 200 yards away. I heard the crack of AK-47 seconds, that distinctive sound that made your bowels turn to water, and then the air was full of bullets. They made a snapping sound as they passed overhead, like someone cracking a whip right next to your ear. "Contact right!" Lieutenant Morrison screamed, and we all hit the deck, splashing into the fetid water of the rice paddy. I pressed myself as flat as I could, my face in the mud, my rifle clutched to my chest. Bullets were churning up the water around us, kicking up little geysers. Someone was screaming. I couldn't tell if they were hit or just scared shitless. Probably both. Then I felt a tremendous impact on the side of my head, like someone had hit me with a baseball bat. My helmet rang like a bell, and for a second, I couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. I thought I was dead. I thought a bullet had gone through my skull, and I just hadn't realized it yet. I reached up with a shaking hand and felt my helmet. There was a deep gouge in the metal, right above my ear. The bullet had hit at an angle and ricocheted off. Another inch to the left, and I wouldn't have had a head anymore. "Brennan!" Martinez was screaming at me. "Brennan, you hit?" "No," I screamed back, though my ears were still ringing. "I'm good." "Then get on the fucking radio and get us some air support." Right. That was my job. That's why I was here. I rolled onto my side and yanked the radio handset from my pack. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it in the water. I keyed the mic and started calling. "Nail 7-3. Nail 7-3. This is Wolfhound 2-6. Over." Static. More gunfire. Someone was definitely screaming now. A high-pitched wail of agony. "Nail 7-3. This is Wolfhound 2-6. We are taking heavy fire from the tree line at grid coordinates." I rattled off our position, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the terror coursing through my veins. "Wolfhound 2-6. This is Nail 7-3. Copy your position. What do you need?" "We need everything you've got on that tree line. Danger close." "How copy?" "Copy danger close. We have 2 phantoms with Snake and Nape. 5 minutes out." 5 minutes. We had to survive 5 minutes. "Roger. Nail 7-3. Mark the tree line with smoke." I grabbed a smoke grenade from my belt, pulled the pin, and hurled it toward the tree line. It landed about 50 yards short, but close enough. Purple smoke began billowing up, marking the target. "Purple smoke! Purple smoke!" I screamed into the radio. "Copy purple smoke. Birds are inbound. Keep your heads down." The following 5 minutes lasted a lifetime. We returned fire as best we could, but we were pinned down, half submerged in stinking water, while Charlie had the high ground and good cover. More guys were getting hit. I could hear Lieutenant Morrison calling for a medic, and I could listen to Doc Ramirez splashing through the water, trying to reach the wounded. Then I heard it, the most beautiful sound in the world, the roar of jet engines. "Heads down!" I screamed. "Heads down! Heads down!" The F-4 Phantoms came in low and fast, screaming over the rice paddies like angry gods. I saw the canisters tumbling from their wings, saw them arcing toward the tree line, and then the world turned to fire. Napalm is a terrible thing. It's jellied gasoline that sticks to everything it touches and burns at over 1,000 degrees. When those canisters hit the tree line, the jungle simply ceased to exist. A wall of flame erupted, orange and red and white hot, rolling through the trees like a living thing. The heat washed over us even from 200 yards away, and the sound, God, the sound was like the earth itself screaming. The gunfire stopped. For a moment, there was only the roar of the flames and the receding thunder of the jets. Then Lieutenant Morrison was yelling at us to move, to get to the wounded, to get ready for a medevac. I pushed myself up out of the water, my whole body shaking. My helmet felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I looked at the tree line, what was left of it, and saw nothing but fire and black smoke. "Good shooting, flyboy," Martinez said, clapping me on the shoulder as he slogged past. His face was pale beneath the mud, and his hands were shaking too. We had 4 wounded, non-critical, thank God. Doc Ramirez had stabilized. By the time the Huey came in, the helicopter's rotors beating the air like a giant's heartbeat. We loaded the wounded aboard, and the bird lifted off, banking hard and fast to get out of the area. We humped back to base in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts, each of us knowing how close we'd come to not making it back at all. Chapter 3. The letter. That night, I sat on my cot and pulled out Sarah's latest letter. My hands were still shaking. The letter was dated 2 weeks ago. It took that long for the mail to reach us. She wrote about a church social, about her friend Betty getting engaged, about how she'd bought a new dress and wished I could see her in it. "I miss you so much, baby," she wrote. "Every day feels like a year. But I know you're coming home to me. I know it in my heart. Stay safe. I love you. Forever yours, Sarah." I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the cigar box with all the others. There must have been 100 letters in there by now, maybe more. I ran my fingers over the carved dragon on the lid and tried to imagine Sarah's face, tried to remember what it felt like to hold her, to kiss her, to be somewhere that wasn't this godforsaken jungle. The letters kept coming, regularly as clockwork, until they didn't. It was subtle at first. Instead of getting a letter every day, I'd get one every other day, then every 3 days. I told myself it was just the mail system, that things got delayed, that it didn't mean anything. But I knew. Deep down, I knew. The letters that did come started to change. They were shorter, less personal. She stopped talking about our future, stopped talking about the wedding we'd planned. She wrote about the weather, about work, about nothing at all. "I hope you're staying safe," one letter said. "Things are fine here. Not much to report. Take care of yourself. Sarah." No, I love you. No, forever yours. Just Sarah. I read that letter 10 times, looking for something I'd missed, some hidden message that would tell me everything was okay. But there was nothing there, just empty words on a page. Martinez noticed. "You okay, man? You look like somebody died." "I'm fine," I lied. "Bullshit. What's going on?" I showed him the letter. He read it, his face growing grim. "Ah, hell, Brennan. I'm sorry, man." "It doesn't mean anything," I said. "She's just busy. That's all." "Yeah," Martinez said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Yeah, probably." 2 weeks later, the letter came. I knew what it was the moment I saw it. The envelope was thicker than usual, and my name was written in a different pen, like she'd had to work herself up to writing it. My hands were shaking as I opened it. "Dear Michael," it began. Not baby, not my love, just Michael. "I don't know how to write this letter. I've started it a dozen times and thrown it away. But you deserve the truth, and I owe you that much. I've met someone else. His name is Robert. He's a high school teacher. We met at a faculty mixer. I've been working in the school office since June. I didn't mean for it to happen. I tried to fight it. But Michael, you've been gone for almost a year, and I don't know when you're coming back, or if you're coming back, and I can't keep living my life on hold. I'm so sorry. I know this is the worst possible time to tell you this. I know you're over there fighting and risking your life, and I feel like the worst person in the world for doing this to you. But I can't keep pretending. I can't keep writing letters full of lies. I hope you can forgive me someday. I hope you make it home safely. I hope you find someone who can give you what you need, what you deserve. But that person isn't me. Not anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so sad. Sarah." I read the letter 3 times. Then I reread it. The words didn't change. She was gone. The girl I'd loved since I was 16. The girl I'd planned to marry. The girl who'd promised to wait for me. She was gone. I sat there on my cot, the letter in my hands, and I couldn't feel anything. It was like someone had reached into my chest and scooped out everything inside, leaving just an empty cavity where my heart used to be. Brennan? It was Davis who came into the tent. You okay, man? You look... Oh, shit. He must have seen it on my face. He must have known. I'm fine, I said. Brennan, I said I'm fine. I stood up, the letter crumpling in my fist. I'm going for a walk. I walked out of the tent and kept walking until I reached the perimeter. I stood there, staring out at the jungle, at the wire and the sandbags and the darkness beyond, and I felt nothing. Nothing at all. Chapter 4. My Brothers. I held it together for 3 days. 3 days of going through the motions, of doing my job, of pretending everything was fine. The guys knew something was wrong, but they gave me space. In Vietnam, everybody had their demons. You learned not to pry. On the 4th day, I got my hands on a bottle of whiskey. I don't even remember where I got it, traded for it, probably, or won it in a card game. It didn't matter. All that mattered was that it was alcohol, and alcohol could make me stop feeling this gaping wound in my chest. I waited until the other guys in my tent went to the mess hall for dinner. Then I sat down on my cot, opened the bottle, and started drinking. The whiskey burned going down, but it was a good burn, a clean burn, not like the burn of napalm or the burn of betrayal, just simple, honest fire in my throat and belly. I pulled out the cigar box. The dragon on the lid seemed to be mocking me now. I opened it and looked at the letters inside. Months and months of letters, all those promises, all those lies. Forever, I said out loud, my voice already slurring. Forever yours, Sarah. What a load of shit. I took another drink, then another. I pulled out a letter at random and read it. I love you so much, baby. I can't wait until you come home and we can start our life together. I crumpled it up and threw it across the tent. Another letter. You're my hero, Michael. My brave soldier. I'm so proud of you. Crumpled. Thrown. Another. 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 I was crying now, tears streaming down my face, but I didn't care. I kept drinking and kept tearing up letters. Months of correspondence reduced to wadded balls of paper scattered across the tent floor. Liar! I screamed at the empty tent. Fucking liar! I threw the cigar box across the tent. It hit the support pole and shattered pieces of teak scattering everywhere. The carved dragon's head landed at my feet, staring up at me with its empty eyes. I picked up my cot and flipped it over. My footlocker followed, clothes and gear spilling out. I grabbed Martinez's cot and flipped that too, then Davis's, then Johnson's. I was destroying everything, and I couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop. I don't know how long I raged. It felt like hours. It was probably minutes. Eventually, I ran out of things to destroy and collapsed on the floor among the wreckage, the bottle still clutched in my hand, and I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. That's how they found me, Martinez, Davis, and Johnson, standing in the doorway of the tent, staring at the destruction. Jesus Christ, Brennan, Martinez said softly. I looked up at them, my face wet with tears and snot, and I couldn't even speak. I just held up the Dear John letter, and they understood. They didn't say anything. They just came in, picked me up off the floor, and helped me with what was left of my cot. Davis righted it while Martinez took the bottle from my hand. That's enough of that, brother, he said gently. Johnson started picking up the pieces of the cigar box. He found the dragon's head and held it up. This was nice, man. I'm sorry. Everything's broken, I mumbled. Everything. Yeah, Martinez said, sitting down beside me. Yeah, it is. But you're not. You hear me, Brennan? You're not broken. You're still here. You're still breathing. That's what matters. She was everything, I said. No, Davis said firmly. She was something. She was important. But she wasn't everything. We're here. We're your brothers. And we're not going anywhere. They stayed with me that night, the 3 of them. They cleaned up the tent while I lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling. They didn't make me talk. They didn't try to make me feel better. They just stayed. And somehow, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache and a mouth that tasted as if something had died in it. The tent was clean, they must have worked half the night. My cot neatly stacked my gear. The pieces of the cigar box were gone. On my footlocker, someone had left a cup of coffee and 2 aspirins. I sat up slowly, my head pounding, and looked around. Martinez was asleep on his cot, still in his boots. Davis and Johnson were gone, probably on duty. I picked up the coffee and took a sip. It was terrible, but it was hot, and it was there, and that meant something. Martinez stirred and opened one eye. "You alive?" "Unfortunately." "Good, because we've got patrol in 2 hours, and I need my forward air controller." "Martinez, don't," he said, sitting up. "Don't apologize. Don't thank me. Just get your shit together and do your job. That's all any of us can do." He was right. In Vietnam, you didn't have the luxury of falling apart. You had a job to do, and people were counting on you. So, I got up, I got dressed, and I went to work. But something had changed. The letters from Sarah had been my anchor, my connection to the world I'd left behind. Without them, I was adrift. I was just another grunt in the jungle, fighting a war I didn't understand for reasons I couldn't articulate. The guys never let me forget I was in the Air Force, but they never let me forget I was one of them, either. "Hey, flyboy," Martinez would say, "you think you can call in an airstrike without crying about your girlfriend? Fuck you, Martinez." That's the spirit. It was their way of telling me they cared and had my back, and when the shit hit the fan, which it did, regularly they trusted me to get them out of it. I'd called in airstrikes that had saved their lives, had directed medevacs that had gotten wounded men to hospitals in time. They might joke about me being in the Air Force, but they respected what I could do. "You're all right, Brennan," Johnson told me one night. "For a flyboy, you're not so bad yourself," I replied. "For an idiot," he grinned. "Takes one to know one." It wasn't much, but it was something. It was enough to keep going. Chapter 5. The Sudden Pain. September came, and with it, a new mission. A Navy F-4 Phantom had been shot down about 15 clicks north of our position. The pilot had ejected and was on the ground, but his wingman had lost contact. Command wanted us to go in and get him out. "This is a bad idea," Lieutenant Morrison said at the briefing. "That area is crawling with NVA. They know there's a downed pilot. They're going to be looking for him, too." "Which is why we need to get there first," the captain said. "The Navy's already lost 1 plane. They don't want to lose the pilot, too." "Sir, with all due respect." "You have your orders, Lieutenant. Get your men ready. You leave at 0600. We loaded into 2 Hueys just after dawn. Besides our squad, we had a Navy corpsman with us, a guy named Petty Officer Collins, who looked like he was about 12 years old. He had a medical bag that was almost as big as he was. "You ever done this before?" I asked him as we lifted off. "Done what?" "Combat rescue." "No," he admitted. "You?" "No." "Well, shit." The flight took 20 minutes. We flew low and fast, the door gunners scanning the jungle below for any sign of trouble. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "LZ coming up. Looks hot. We're going to drop you fast and get out. Good luck." Hot was an understatement. As we came in for the landing, I could see tracer rounds arcing up from the jungle. The door gunners opened up, their M60s hammering away, spent brass cascading onto the floor of the helicopter. Then something hit us, a tremendous bang that made the whole helicopter shudder. Alarms started blaring in the cockpit. "We're hit!" the pilot screamed. "We're hit! I'm putting her down!" The Huey dropped like a stone. We hit the ground hard, the skids slamming into the earth. The pilot didn't even wait for us to get out as soon as our boots hit dirt. He was pulling up, the damaged helicopter clawing for altitude. "Move! Move! Move!" Lieutenant Morrison screamed, and we ran for the tree line. Behind us, I could hear the second Huey dropping off the rest of the squad. More gunfire, more screaming. We made it to the trees and took cover, our hearts pounding, our breath coming in ragged gasps. "Everybody okay?" Morrison called out. We sounded off. Everybody was there. Everybody was alive, for now. "All right," Morrison said. "Brennan, you got that radio?" I did. I pulled out the handheld radio. We'd been given a PRC-90 survival radio, the same kind the pilot would have. Guardian, Guardian, this is Wolfhound 26. Do you copy? Static. I tried again. Guardian, Guardian, this is Wolfhound 26. We are on the ground at your last known position. Do you copy? More static. Then faintly, Wolfhound, this is Guardian. I copy. Guardian, what is your position? I don't know. I'm hurt. Legs. Guardian, can you pop smoke? Can you set off a flare? I'll try. We waited, scanning the jungle around us. Every shadow looked like an enemy soldier. Every sound could be someone sneaking up on us. Then I saw it, a thin trail of red smoke rising from the jungle about 300 yards to our east. There, I pointed. Red smoke. Let's move, Morrison said. Stay sharp. This could be a trap. We moved through the jungle in a tactical column, weapons up, every sense on high alert. The jungle was thick here, the undergrowth so dense we had to hack through it with machetes. It was slow going, and every second felt like an eternity. We found him in a small clearing, half hidden under a fallen log. He was still in his flight suit, his helmet beside him, and his legs, Jesus, his legs were a mess. One was clearly broken, bent at an unnatural angle. The other was bleeding badly. A tourniquet, made from his survival vest, cinched tight around his thigh. Guardian? I called out softly. Here, he croaked. I'm here. Collins, the corpsman, rushed forward and started working on him. The pilot, his name tag, said LCDR Harrison, was pale and sweating, his eyes glassy with pain and shock. How bad? Morrison asked Collins. Bad, Collins said. Compound fracture on the left leg. Possible femoral artery damage on the right, that's what the tourniquet's for. He's lost a lot of blood. We need to get him out of here now. Can he walk? Not a chance. Then we carry him. Martinez and Johnson make a litter. Use branches and ponchos. Move. While they worked, I got on the radio and called for an emergency medevac. The response wasn't encouraging. Wolfhound 26. Be advised, the LZ is too hot. We can't come in until you secure the area. Negative, negative. We have a critically wounded pilot here. He needs immediate evac. Understood. But we can't risk another bird. You need to move to the alternate LZ grid coordinates. He rattled off a position. I checked my map. It was half a click away, back the way we'd come. Roger, I said, though my heart was sinking. Half a click through hostile jungle, carrying a wounded man? This was going to be bad. Martinez and Johnson finished the litter, a crude stretcher made from branches and ponchos. We loaded Harrison onto it as gently as we could, but he still screamed. Collins gave him a shot of morphine, and the pilot's eyes went unfocused. Let's move, Morrison said. We started back toward the LZ, 4 men carrying the litter, the rest of us providing security. It was brutal work. The litter was heavy, the jungle was thick, and we all knew Charlie was out there somewhere, watching, waiting. We were halfway to the LZ when they hit us. The first burst of gunfire came from our left flank. Martinez went down, blood spraying from his shoulder. Johnson dropped his end of the litter and returned fire. The jungle erupted with the sound of AK-47 and M16, a deafening cacophony that made thought impossible. Contact left, someone screamed. I dropped to one knee and started firing, my M16 bucking against my shoulder. I couldn't see what I was shooting at, just muzzle flashes in the jungle, but I kept firing anyway. We need to move, Morrison screamed. Get to the LZ! Davis and I grabbed the litter. Martinez was on his feet, one hand pressed to his shoulder, the other holding his rifle. We ran, stumbling through the jungle, bullets snapping through the air around us. The LZ was just ahead. I could see the clearing through the trees. The Huey was already there, rotors turning, the door gunners laying down, suppressing fire. Go, 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 Morrison screamed. We burst out of the tree line and ran for the helicopter. Behind us, I could hear the NVA soldiers crashing through the jungle, and I could hear their shouts and their gunfire. We were 10 yards from the Huey when I felt it a tremendous impact in my lower back. like someone had hit me with a sledgehammer. My legs went out from under me, and I fell, the world spinning around me. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't work. I looked down and saw blood, so much blood spreading across my fatigues. "Brennan!" Martinez was there, grabbing me under the arms, dragging me toward the helicopter. "Stay with me, man. Stay with me." I tried to answer, but I couldn't make my mouth work. The world was going gray around the edges, sounds becoming muffled and distant. I saw the Huey's door gunner firing over my head, saw the tracer rounds arcing into the jungle, saw Martinez's face, pale and terrified, as he dragged me up into the helicopter. Then everything went black. Chapter 6. An Angel in White. I woke up to pain. Not the sharp, immediate pain of being shot that had been almost abstract, like it was happening to someone else. This was different. This was a deep, grinding ache that radiated from my lower back through my entire body, a dull hurt that made every breath an effort. I tried to move and couldn't. I was lying on my side, tubes running into both arms, something beeping steadily nearby. My eyes were blurry, and it took me a moment to focus. I was in a tent, a hospital tent. From the look of it, the canvas walls glowed with filtered sunlight. There were other beds lining the tent, other wounded men in various states of consciousness. Some were moaning, some were silent. One was praying in Spanish, his voice a soft murmur. "Easy," a voice said. A woman's voice. "Don't try to move. You've got a lot of hardware in you right now." I turned my head slowly, because even that hurt, and saw her. She was a nurse, a first lieutenant from the bars on her collar. She wore green fatigues and had her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was checking the IV in my arm, her movements efficient and professional. But it was her eyes that caught me, deep brown, warm and compassionate, with little crinkles at the corners that suggested she smiled a lot, even in this place. "Where?" My voice came out as a croak. "You're at the 24th Evac Hospital in Long Bin," she said. "You were shot in the back, near your kidneys. The bullet missed anything vital, but you lost a lot of blood. You've been out for 2 days." 2 days. I tried to process that and couldn't. "The others?" I managed. "Your squad? They're fine." "Well, mostly fine. One guy with a shoulder wound, but he'll be okay. The pilot you rescued is in surgery, but he'll make it. You did well." I closed my eyes. We'd made it. We'd actually made it. "What's your name?" I asked. "First Lieutenant Catherine Reeves," she said. "But you can call me Kate." "Airman First Class Michael Brennan," I said. "But you can call me Mike." She smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her whole face. "Nice to meet you, Mike. Now get some rest. You've got a long recovery ahead of you." She moved on to the next patient, and I watched her go, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope, exactly. Not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. I drifted in and out of consciousness for the next few days. The pain was constant, managed by morphine that made everything feel distant and dreamlike. Kate was often there, checking my vitals, changing my dressings, and making sure I was comfortable. "You're healing well," she told me on the 3rd day. "Better than expected, actually. You must be tough." "Air Force tough," I said, and she laughed. "I didn't know the Air Force was tough. We don't advertise it. Bad for our image." She smiled again, and I realized I was trying to make her smile, trying to see that light in her eyes. It was something to focus on besides the pain, besides the memories of the jungle and the gunfire and the blood. "What's an Air Force guy doing getting shot in the jungle anyway?" she asked. "Long story. I've got time." So, I told her about being a forward air controller, about being attached to the Wolfhounds, about the mission to rescue the downed pilot. I didn't tell her about Sarah. That wound was still too fresh, too raw. She listened, her eyes never leaving my face. And when I finished, she said, "You're a hero. You know that? I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who did his job." That's what all the heroes say. Over the next week, as I slowly regained my strength, Kate and I talked more. She told me about growing up in Boston, about going to nursing school, about volunteering for Vietnam because she wanted to make a difference. My brother was here, she said quietly one night. He was a Marine. He was killed at Khe Sanh. I'm sorry. Me too. But that's why I'm here. I couldn't save him, but maybe I can save someone else's brother. There was something about her, a strength, a compassion, a quiet determination that drew me in. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. She was real. She was here, in this place, doing this impossible job, and she did it with grace and humor and kindness. I found myself looking forward to her shifts, to the sound of her voice, to the way she'd touch my shoulder when she checked on me. It was nothing, really just professional care, but it felt like everything. You know, I said one day, you're a first lieutenant, and I'm just an airman first class. Isn't there some regulation about fraternization? She raised an eyebrow. Are you fraternizing with me, Airman Brennan? I'm thinking about it. Well, don't think too hard. You might hurt yourself. But she was smiling when she said it, and I knew that she felt it too. This thing between us, this connection that had nothing to do with rank or regulations or the war outside these canvas walls, it started slowly, a touch that lasted a little too long, a smile that meant more than it should, conversations that stretched late into the night, when the other nurses had gone to bed and the wounded were sleeping. I shouldn't be here, she whispered one night, sitting on the edge of my bed. If anyone saw, I won't tell if you won't. She laughed softly. You're trouble, Airman Brennan. You have no idea, Lieutenant Reeves. But she stayed, and we talked until dawn, about everything, about our lives before the war and our dreams for after. She told me she wanted to open a clinic back home, helping people who couldn't afford regular medical care. I told her about wanting to fly, about maybe becoming a pilot when I got out. I didn't tell her about Sarah. Not yet. That was still a wound I wasn't ready to expose. As I got stronger, able to sit up and eventually stand with help, the attraction between us grew harder to ignore. It was in the way she looked at me, the way her hand would linger on mine when she helped me walk. It was in the way my heart would race when she entered the tent, the way I'd watch for her during her shifts. This is crazy, she said one night. We were outside the hospital tent, sitting on a bench under the stars. I was finally mobile enough to get around on my own, though my back still ached like hell. You're enlisted. I'm an officer. This could get us both in serious trouble. I know. And you're my patient. There are rules about this. I know. So why can't I stop thinking about you? I turned to look at her. In the moonlight, she was beautiful, not in a flashy way, but in a real way, a way that made my chest ache. Because this is real, I said. Because in this place, where everything is death and destruction and chaos, somehow we found something good, something worth holding on to. Mike, I know it's crazy. I know it's against regulations. I know we could both get court-martialed. But Kate, I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time. And I don't want to let it go just because some manual says we're not supposed to. She was quiet for a long moment, looking up at the stars. Then she said, my brother used to say that life's too short to follow all the rules. He said you have to grab happiness where you find it, because you never know when it's going to be taken away. Smart guy. He was. She turned to look at me, and there were tears in her eyes. He was only 19 when he died. 19. He never got to fall in love, never got to have a family, never got to do any of the things he dreamed about. And I think about that every day. I think about all the men I've watched die in that tent, all the futures that were stolen from them. And I think, what's the point of surviving if you don't actually live? I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. So, let's live, I said. She kissed me then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper, more urgent. It was a kiss that tasted of tears and hope and desperation, a kiss that said, we're alive, we're here, we're together, and that has to be enough. We knew we were taking a risk. We knew that if anyone found out, there would be consequences, but we didn't care. In Vietnam, tomorrow was never guaranteed. All we had was now, this moment, this feeling. We fell in love with the way people fall in love in wartime, quickly, intensely, with a desperation born of knowing it could all end at any moment. Every stolen moment together was precious. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered conversation in the dark was a treasure we hoarded against the uncertainty of the future. "I love you," she told me one night, her head on my chest, her hand over my heart. "I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy, but I love you." "I love you too," I said. And I meant it. I loved her with an intensity that scared me. Loved her in a way I'd never loved anyone before. Not even Sarah. Sarah. I'd almost forgotten about her. About the Dear John letter and the broken promises. Kate had filled that space in my chest. Had made me feel whole again. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Okay." "So," I told her. About Sarah, about the letters, about the Dear John letter, and the night I'd destroyed the tent. I told her everything, holding nothing back. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for telling me." "You're not mad?" "Why would I be mad? You loved someone. She hurt you. That's not your fault." I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that this isn't just me rebounding or trying to fill a void. This is real. You're real. And what I feel for you is real." She kissed me, long and deep. "I know," she whispered. "I know." The weeks passed, and I continued to heal. The doctor said I'd been lucky the bullet had missed my kidney by less than an inch. Another inch, and I'd have been dead or on dialysis for the rest of my life. As it was, I'd have some chronic pain and a hell of a scar, but I'd live. "You'll be cleared for duty soon," Kate told me one morning. There was sadness in her voice. "I know. I don't want you to go back out there. I have to. It's my job." "I know, but that doesn't mean I have to like it." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, antiseptic and soap, and something uniquely her. "When this is over," I said, "when we both get out of this place, I want to marry you." She pulled back to look at me, her eyes wide. "What?" "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other for a few weeks. But Kate, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So when we get home, when this war is over, will you marry me?" She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, yes." We made love that night in a supply closet where no one would find us, surrounded by boxes of bandages and bottles of saline. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't comfortable, but it was us, and it was real, and it was perfect. "This is a love story for the ages," she whispered afterward, her head on my shoulder. "Someday, we'll tell our grandchildren about how we fell in love in a war zone. They'll never believe us." "Good. Let them think we're boring." I laughed, and she laughed, and for a moment, the war didn't exist. There was just us, together, in love, and that was enough. Chapter 7. Combat Never Ends. I was cleared for duty 3 weeks later. The doctor said I was fit to return to my unit, though I'd be on light duty for a while. No humping through the jungle with a full pack, no extended patrols. I'd be doing more radio work, coordinating airstrikes from the base. "I'll take it," I said. "Anything to stay alive, to make it home to Kate." We said goodbye the night before I left, holding each other in the darkness outside the hospital tent. "Come back to me," she whispered. "I will, I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep." "Then I'll keep this one." She kissed me one last time, and then I was gone. Back to the wolfhounds, back to the war. The guys welcomed me back as I'd never left. "Look who's back from the dead," Martinez said, his shoulder still bandaged from the wound he'd taken during the rescue mission. "How's the back, flyboy?" "Hurts like hell." "How's the shoulder?" "Hurts like hell." We're a matched set. It felt good to be back, to be with my brothers again, but everything had changed. I had something to live for now, someone waiting for me. Every mission was a risk I couldn't afford to take. Every patrol was a chance I might not make it back to Kate. I wrote to her every day, long letters full of everything I couldn't say when we were together. I told her about my day, about the guys, about my dreams for our future. She wrote back just as often, her letters full of love and hope and plans for when the war was over. "I've been looking at houses in the real estate section of the Stars and Stripes," she wrote. "I know it's silly, but I like to imagine us in a little house with a yard and a dog. Maybe near the ocean. You could learn to fly, and I could open my clinic, and we could just be normal people living a normal life. Doesn't that sound wonderful?" It sounded like heaven. The mission came down in late November. Intelligence had reports of a large NVA force moving through our sector, and we were tasked with reconnaissance. It was supposed to be simple: go out, observe, report back. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. "I don't like it," Martinez said as we geared up. "Something feels wrong." "Everything feels wrong," I said. "That's Vietnam." We moved out at dawn, a squad of 12 men moving through the jungle in tactical formation. I was in the middle of the column, radio on my back, rifle in my hands. The jungle was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of our boots on the trail and our own breathing. We were 3 clicks from base when all hell broke loose. The ambush came from 3 sides, a classic L-shaped ambush that caught us in a devastating crossfire. The jungle erupted with gunfire, and men started dropping. "Contact! Contact!" Lieutenant Morrison screamed, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of AK-47 seconds and the screams of wounded men. I hit the ground and started returning fire, my M16 on full auto, burning through magazines. Beside me, Martinez was firing his M60, the machine gun hammering away, spent brass cascading over my legs. "We need to fall back," Morrison screamed. "Fall back to the rally point." We started moving, laying down covering fire as we retreated. But the NVA were everywhere, and they were good. They'd planned this, had waited for us, and now they were closing in for the kill. "Brennan," Morrison screamed, "get on that radio. We need air support now." I was already calling it in, screaming coordinates into the handset, begging for anything they could send. But I knew it would take time we didn't have. We fought our way back through the jungle, leaving a trail of blood and spent brass. I saw Johnson go down, saw Davis drag him to cover, saw Morrison take a round to the leg and keep fighting. The NVA were right behind us, so close I could hear them shouting to each other. We were going to die here, all of us. We were going to die in this godforsaken jungle, and Kate would never know what happened to me. "Go!" Martinez screamed at me. "Get out of here. Get back to base. I'm not leaving you." "That's an order, Airman. Go." But I couldn't. I couldn't leave them. These were my brothers, my family. If they died here, I died here. Then the jungle exploded, not from enemy fire, but from something else, a massive explosion that shook the ground and sent a fireball rising into the sky. Then another. Artillery. Someone had called in artillery. "Move!" Morrison screamed. "Move before they adjust fire!" We ran, stumbling through the jungle, the artillery rounds falling behind us like the hammer of God. The NVA broke off their pursuit, falling back to avoid the barrage. We made it back to base 2 hours later, half carrying our wounded, our ammunition nearly exhausted. We'd lost 3 men killed in the initial ambush. 5 more were wounded, including Morrison and Martinez. I collapsed inside the wire, my whole body shaking, my mind numb. We'd made it. Somehow, impossibly, we'd made it. But 3 men hadn't. 3 more names to add to the list of the dead. 3 more families who'd get a telegram and a folded flag. I thought about Kate, about her brother who died at Khe Sanh. I thought about how close I'd come to being another name on another telegram. I thought about the promise I'd made to come back to her, and how easily that promise could have been broken. That night, I wrote her a letter. I told her about the ambush, about how close we'd come to dying. I told her I loved her, that I couldn't wait to see her again, that I was counting the days until we could start our life together. I never got to send it. Chapter 7. Missing in Action. The next mission came a week later. Another reconnaissance patrol, this time to the north. We were still short-handed from the last ambush, so they attached some new guys to our squad. Fresh-faced kids who'd just arrived in country, who still thought this was going to be like the movies. Stick close to the veterans, I told them. Do what they do. Don't be a hero. Just stay alive. They nodded, their eyes wide. And I saw myself in them, the kid I'd been when I first arrived, full of fear and false bravado. The patrol started out routine. We moved through the jungle, checking villages, looking for signs of enemy activity. It was hot and miserable, but it was quiet. No contact, no ambushes. We were on our way back to base when we heard it, the sound of gunfire in the distance, and someone screaming for help over the radio. "This is Delta 2-3. We're pinned down. We need immediate assistance." Morrison looked at me. "How far?" I checked the map. 2 clicks, maybe less. "We're going," he said. "Double time." We ran through the jungle, our gear bouncing, our breath coming in ragged gasps. The gunfire was getting louder, closer. We could hear the distinctive crack of AK-47 seconds, the deeper boom of RPGs. We came up on the fight from the flank. Delta Company had walked into an ambush and was pinned down in a dried-up streambed, taking fire from the high ground on both sides. There were bodies in the streambed, too many bodies. "We need to flank them," Morrison said. "Martinez, take your team left. Brennan, you're with me. We'll go right." We split up, moving through the jungle as quietly as we could. The NVA were focused on Delta Company, pouring fire into the streambed. They didn't see us coming. We hit them from the side, our rifles on full auto, grenades flying. The NVA position collapsed, soldiers running or dying. We pushed forward, trying to link up with Delta Company, trying to get them out of that kill zone. That's when everything went wrong. An RPG round hit a tree right next to me, and the world turned to fire and noise. I was thrown backward, my ears ringing, my vision blurred. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't work right. There was blood, so much blood, but I couldn't tell if it was mine or someone else's. "Brennan!" Someone was screaming my name, but it sounded like they were underwater. "Brennan, get up!" I tried. I really tried. But the world was spinning, and I couldn't make my body obey. More gunfire. More explosions. Someone grabbed me and started dragging me, but then they let go, and I heard them scream. Then nothing. I woke up in darkness. Not the darkness of night, but the absolute darkness of being underground. I was lying on something hard and cold, stone, maybe, or packed earth. My head was pounding, and every part of my body hurt. I tried to move and realized my hands were tied behind my back. My feet were tied too. I was a prisoner. "Fuck," I whispered. "Quiet," a voice said in the darkness. "American. They'll hear you." "Who?" I said, quiet. I shut up. I could hear voices outside, Vietnamese voices, speaking rapidly. I could hear footsteps, the sound of equipment being moved. I'd been captured. I was a prisoner of the NVA. The reality of that hit me like a physical blow. I'd heard the stories about what happened to American POWs. The torture, the starvation, the years in bamboo cages. Some guys never came home. Some guys came home broken, shells of who they'd been. I thought about Kate, about the promise I'd made to come back to her. I thought about the life we'd planned, the house by the ocean, the clinic, the dog. All of it was gone now, vanished like smoke. "How long have I been here?" I whispered. "Few hours," the voice said. "They brought you in unconscious. You were bleeding pretty bad, but they patched you up. They want you alive." "Why?" "Propaganda, probably. Or information. Either way, it's not good." The days that followed were a blur of pain and fear. They interrogated me not with torture, not at first, but with endless questions. Who was I? What was my unit? What were our plans? Where were our bases? I gave them nothing but name, rank, and serial number. They didn't like that. The beatings started on the 3rd day. Nothing that would kill me or permanently injure me, they were too smart for that. Just enough to hurt, to wear me down, to make me want it to stop. I thought about Kate constantly. Her face was the only thing that kept me sane, the only thing that kept me from breaking. I'd close my eyes and see her smile, hear her voice, feel her touch. I'd remember the promise I'd made, and I'd tell myself I had to survive, had to make it back to her. The other prisoner, his name was Captain Reynolds, Army tried to keep my spirits up. "They'll come for us," he'd say. "They always come for us." But weeks passed, then months, and no one came. We were moved from camp to camp, always heading north, always deeper into enemy territory. The conditions were brutal: little food, no medical care, constant fear. Reynolds got sick with dysentery and nearly died. I got malaria and spent a week delirious with fever. But we survived. Day by day, hour by hour, we survived. I thought about Kate every day. I wondered if she knew I was alive, if she was waiting for me, or if she'd moved on. I wondered if she'd gotten the letter I'd written, the one I'd never sent. I wondered if she still loved me. I had to believe she did. That belief was the only thing that kept me alive. Back at the 24th Evac hospital, Kate was living her own nightmare. She'd gotten word that my unit had been in heavy contact, that there were casualties. She'd waited by the radio, praying that I wasn't among them. When the casualty list came through, my name wasn't on it, not among the dead, not among the wounded. At first, she'd been relieved, but then the second list came through, the list of missing in action. Airman First Class Michael Brennan, missing in action. She'd read those words over and over, unable to process them. Missing. Not dead, not wounded, just missing. He's alive, she told herself. He has to be alive. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, hope became harder and harder to hold on to. The other nurses tried to comfort her, tried to tell her that missing didn't mean dead, that there was still a chance. But she'd seen too much death, had watched too many men die in her tent. She knew the odds. She knew that most men who went missing in Vietnam never came home. She cried herself to sleep every night, clutching the letters I'd written her, reading them over and over until she had them memorized. She wore the dog tags I'd given her. I'd had an extra set made, had given them to her as a promise that I'd come back. "I can't do this," she told her friend, Lieutenant Sarah Gates, one night. "I can't keep pretending he's coming back." "You don't know that he's not," Sarah said gently. "It's been 4 months, Sarah. 4 months with no word. If he was alive, if he was a prisoner, we'd have heard something by now. Maybe, maybe not. You can't give up hope." But hope was a luxury Kate couldn't afford. Every day she saw men die. Every day she saw families destroyed. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break you. She threw herself into her work, volunteering for extra shifts, taking care of the wounded with a fierce dedication that bordered on obsession. If she couldn't save me, she'd save everyone else. She'd make sure no other woman had to feel what she was feeling. The months crawled by. Christmas came and went, then New Year's, then Valentine's Day. Each holiday was a fresh wound, a reminder of what she'd lost. In March, she got her orders. She was being rotated home, her tour of duty complete. She should have been happy she was going home, back to the world, back to safety. But all she felt was empty. "I can't leave," she told her commanding officer. "Not while he's still missing. Lieutenant Reeves, you've done your duty. You've served with distinction. But your tour is over. You're going home." "But that's an order, Lieutenant." She packed her things in a daze, saying goodbye to the other nurses, to the doctors, to the wounded men she'd cared for. She took one last look at the hospital tent where we'd met, where we'd fallen in love, and she cried. On the flight home, she stared out the window at the jungle below, wondering if I was down there somewhere, wondering if I was alive or dead, wondering if I'd ever know how much she loved me. Kate arrived in Mobile, Alabama, on a warm spring day. She'd never been to Mobile before, had only heard about it from my letters, but she felt drawn there, like it was the last connection she had to me. She found my parents' house easily enough, a small, neat bungalow on a tree-lined street. She stood on the sidewalk for a long time, trying to work up the courage to knock on the door. Finally, she did. My mother answered, a small, gray-haired woman with kind eyes and my smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Mrs. Brennan?" My name is Kate Reeves. I'm... I was. I knew your son. In Vietnam. My mother's face went pale. Is he... No, Kate said quickly. No, I don't have any news. I'm sorry. I wanted to meet you, to talk to you about him. My mother stared at her for a long moment, then opened the door wider. Come in, dear. Please. The house was exactly as I'd described it in my letters, comfortable and lived in, full of family photos and memories. There was a picture of me in my uniform on the mantel, young and smiling, before the war had taken its toll. My father was there too, a tall, quiet man who shook Kate's hand and offered her a seat. They sat in the living room, and Kate told them everything. About how we'd met, about falling in love, about the promise I'd made to come back. He talked about you all the time, Kate said, tears streaming down her face. He loved you both so much. He couldn't wait to come home, to introduce me to you, to start our life together. My mother was crying too. We got the telegram saying he was missing. They said they'd let us know if there was any news, but there hasn't been. It's been 6 months now. I know, Kate said. I've been checking every day. There's been nothing. They sat in silence for a moment, 3 people bound together by love and loss. Stay, my mother said suddenly. Stay with us. For a few days, at least. We'd like to get to know you, to hear more about Michael. Kate stayed for a week. She told my parents stories about me, about the man I'd been in Vietnam. She showed them the letters I'd written, the dog tags I'd given her. She cried with them, laughed with them, mourned with them. And slowly, she realized something. She was pregnant. She'd missed her period before leaving Vietnam, but she'd attributed it to stress. But now, with the nausea and the fatigue and the tenderness in her breasts, she knew. I'd left her with more than just memories. I'd left her with a child. She told my parents one evening, sitting in the living room where we'd spent so many hours talking. I'm pregnant, she said quietly. It's Michael's. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father just stared. I know this is a shock, Kate said quickly. I know we weren't married, and I know it's not proper. But I love him. I love him so much. And I'm going to have this baby, and I'm going to raise it, to know what an amazing man its father was. My mother was crying again, but she was smiling too. She reached out and took Kate's hand. Your family now, she said. You and the baby. Your family, and we're going to take care of you. Kate stayed in Mobile. She got a job at the local hospital, found a small apartment near my parents' house. My mother was with her at every doctor's appointment, helping her prepare for the baby, knitting tiny blankets and booties. The months passed. Kate's belly grew, and every night she'd lie in bed with her hands on her stomach, talking to the baby about me. Your daddy is a hero, she'd say. He's brave and strong and kind, and he loves you so much, even though he doesn't know you exist yet. When he comes home, if he comes home, he's going to be the best father in the world. If he comes home. That if was getting harder and harder to ignore. I'd lost track of time. Days blended into weeks, weeks into months. I knew it had been a long time. My beard was long and matted. My body was skeletal from malnutrition, and my clothes were little more than rags. Reynolds had died 2 months ago, or was it 3? I couldn't remember. He'd gotten sick again, and this time, he didn't recover. I'd held his hand as he died, had promised to tell his family that he'd been brave, that he'd never broken. I was alone now, the only American in the camp. The guards mostly ignored me, except when they wanted to beat me or interrogate me. I'd stopped fighting back. I'd stopped caring. The only thing that kept me going was Kate. I'd think about her constantly, imagining conversations with her, remembering every moment we'd spent together. Sometimes I'd forget where I was, would think I was back in the hospital tent with her, and then I'd open my eyes and see the bamboo walls of my cage, and remember, I'd given up hope of rescue. I'd given up hope of escape. I was going to die here, in this cage, in this jungle, and Kate would never know what happened to me. But then, in late September, or maybe it was October, something changed. The guards became agitated, moving equipment, burning documents. Something was happening. A week later, they came for me. They untied me from the post I'd been chained to and dragged me out of the cage. I thought they were going to execute me, finally, mercifully, end this nightmare. Instead, they put me in a truck with a dozen other prisoners, Americans I'd never seen before. All of us, in the same condition. All of us, barely alive. "What's happening?" I croaked to the man next to me. "Prisoner exchange," he said. "We're going home." I didn't believe him. It had to be a trick, another form of torture. But the truck kept moving, and eventually, we arrived at an airfield. There was a plane there, an American plane, and men in clean uniforms waiting for us. "Welcome home, gentlemen," one of them said. "You're safe now. You're going home." I collapsed. I actually collapsed, my legs giving out, my mind unable to process what was happening. Someone caught me, helped me onto the plane, and then we were taking off, leaving Vietnam behind. I was going home. After 9 months as a prisoner, after giving up all hope, I was going home. Chapter 9. Going home. Kate was at my parents' house when the news broke. She was 8 months pregnant now, her belly huge, the baby kicking constantly. She'd just finished dinner and was helping my mother with the dishes when my father called from the living room. "Kate! Mrs. Brennan! Come here, quick!" They rushed into the living room. My father was standing in front of the television, his hand over his mouth, tears streaming down his face. On the screen, the evening news was showing footage of a prisoner exchange. American POWs were getting off a plane, thin and haggard, but alive. The reporter was reading names. Among the prisoners released today are Captain James Reynolds, Sergeant Thomas Martinez, that's one of Michael's friends, Kate said, her heart pounding, Private First Class David Gates, and Airman First Class Michael Brennan. The world stopped. Kate couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at the screen. And then she saw me. I was at the back of the group, being helped down the stairs by 2 medics. I was thin, so thin, and my face was gaunt and bearded. But it was me. I was alive. "Oh my God," Kate whispered. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God." My mother was sobbing, clutching my father. My father was crying too, his shoulders shaking. Kate just stood there, her hands on her belly, tears streaming down her face, and she felt the baby kick as if it knew its father was coming home. They flew us to a military hospital in the Philippines first, where they cleaned us up, fed us, and started treating our various ailments. I'd lost 60 pounds. I had malaria, dysentery, and a dozen other infections. My back where I'd been shot had never healed properly and was a mass of scar tissue. But I was alive. Against all odds, I was alive. "You have visitors," a nurse told me a few days after we arrived. "Your parents flew out to see you." My parents. I hadn't seen them in almost 2 years. I didn't know if I was ready, didn't know if I could face them looking like this, a skeleton wrapped in skin, a ghost of the son they'd sent off to war. But when they walked into the room, none of that mattered. My mother took one look at me and burst into tears, rushing forward to hug me. My father was right behind her, his arms around both of us, and we stood there crying together. "We thought we'd lost you," my mother sobbed. "We thought you were dead." "I'm okay, Mom," I said, though my voice was hoarse and broken. "I'm okay. There's someone else who wants to see you," my father said. "Someone who's been waiting for you." Kate. He had to mean Kate. "Is she here?" I asked, my heart racing. "She's in Mobile," my mother said. "She's been living with us. Michael, there's something you need to know." But before she could finish, a doctor came in and said I needed to rest, that I'd had enough excitement for one day. My parents promised to come back tomorrow, and they left, and I was alone with my thoughts. Kate was in Mobile. Kate had been living with my parents. Kate had been waiting for me. I'd made it. I'd kept my promise. I was coming home to her. They flew me back to the States 2 weeks later. I was still weak, still recovering, but I was stable enough to travel. They were sending me to a military hospital in Pensacola, just an hour from Mobile. Chapter 10. Homecoming. Kate was there when I arrived. I saw her standing on the tarmac at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, and for a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. The malaria had done that to me before, shown me things that weren't there, conjured up faces from my memories. But then she moved, stepping forward, and I saw her clearly in the Florida sunshine. She was wearing a simple blue dress, and she was beautiful, more beautiful than I remembered. And she was pregnant, very pregnant. My legs almost gave out. I'd been walking with a cane, still recovering from the bullet wound and the months of captivity. But seeing her like that, seeing the swell of her belly, knowing what it meant, I nearly collapsed right there on the tarmac. "Michael," she said, and her voice broke on my name. I don't remember crossing the distance between us. One moment I was standing there, staring, and the next I had my arms around her carefully, so carefully, because I was terrified of hurting her or the baby. She was crying, and I was crying, and neither of us could speak. "You're alive," she kept saying. "You're alive. You're alive. You're alive." "I'm here," I managed. "I'm here, Kate. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you." "Don't," she said fiercely, pulling back to look at me. Her hands came up to cup my face, her thumbs brushing away my tears. "Don't you dare apologize. You came back. That's all that matters. You came back to us." "Us," I repeated, and my hand moved to her belly. I could feel movement there, a kick, strong and insistent. "Our child. Our baby. Kate. I know," she said. "I know, Michael. I love you too." We stood there for a long time, holding each other, crying and laughing and trying to believe that this was real. That after everything, after the war, the capture, the months of not knowing, we'd found our way back to each other. My parents were there too, hanging back to give us our moment, but eventually they came forward. My mother was crying, and my father's eyes were suspiciously bright. They embraced me, told me how much they'd missed me, how grateful they were that I was home. "Kate's been staying with us," my mother said. "She's been part of the family, Michael. We've been taking care of her." "She's been taking care of us," my father corrected, "keeping us sane, keeping us hopeful." Kate smiled through her tears. "They've been wonderful. Your mother's been knitting enough baby clothes to outfit triplets." "Just the one, though," I said, my hand still on her belly. "Right?" "Just the one," she confirmed, laughing. "As far as we know." They admitted me to the hospital for observation and physical therapy, but Kate never left my side. She'd pull a chair up next to my bed and sit there for hours, holding my hand, telling me everything that had happened while I was gone, how she'd gotten her orders to go home, how she couldn't bear to leave without knowing what happened to me, how she'd come to Mobile to meet my parents, to tell them about us, about the baby. "Your mother knew before I even said anything," Kate told me, laughing softly. She took one look at me and said, "You're carrying my grandchild, aren't you?" "She always did have a sixth sense about these things," I said. "The doctors told me I'd be medically retired from the Air Force. My injuries were too severe for active duty, though I'd keep my benefits and my pension. It should have felt like loss, like the end of something, but all I felt was relief. The war was over for me. I could finally start living." Kate had already been discharged from the Army. She'd served her time, done her duty, and now she was free too. Free to be with me, free to build the life we'd dreamed about. "There's nothing stopping us now," I said one night, lying in the hospital bed with Kate, curled up beside me as much as her belly would allow. "No regulations, no rank differences, no war, just us," she said. "Just us," I agreed. "Marry me, Kate. Properly this time, not just a promise in a war zone. Marry me here, at home, with our families watching." She kissed me softly. "I thought you'd never ask." We got married 3 weeks later in my parents' backyard, under the same oak tree where I'd played as a child. It was a small ceremony, just family and a few close friends, including Martinez and Johnson, who'd both made it home and drove down from their respective homes to be there. Kate wore a white dress that accommodated her belly, and she'd never looked more radiant. I wore my dress uniform, the medals I'd earned pinned to my chest, though they felt less important than the woman walking toward me. Martinez was my best man. Never thought I'd see the day, he whispered as Kate approached. Flyboy getting married. Shut up, I said, but I was grinning. The ceremony was simple. We exchanged vows under that oak tree, promising to love each other through whatever came next. When the chaplain said I could kiss my bride, I did, and everyone cheered. And for the first time, in longer than I could remember, everything felt right. Kate went into labor 2 days later. We barely made it to the hospital in time. The contractions had started in the middle of the night, and by dawn, they were coming fast and hard. I drove like a madman through the streets of Mobile, Kate gripping my hand and breathing through the pain. You've got this, I kept saying. You're the strongest person I know. Easy for you to say, she gasped, but she was smiling. Our daughter was born at 8:47 a.m. on October 15th, 1972. She came into the world screaming, healthy and perfect, with a full head of dark hair and her mother's eyes. The nurse placed her in Kate's arms, and we both just stared at her, this tiny miracle we'd created. Hope, Kate said softly. Her name is Hope. Hope. It was perfect. After everything we'd been through, after all the darkness and fear and uncertainty, here was hope. Here was the future. Here was proof that love could survive anything. I held my daughter for the first time, this tiny weight in my arms, and I wept. I thought about the men who hadn't made it home, about the brothers I'd lost, about all the futures that had been cut short. And I made a silent promise to them, to all of them, that I would live well, that I would love well, that I would make this life count. We bought the house with the porch, the one Kate had found in the real estate magazines. It needed work, but we didn't mind. We spent our days fixing it up, making it ours, building the life we'd dreamed about. My parents lived just a few blocks away, and they were over constantly, spoiling their granddaughter, helping with repairs, being the family we needed. Hope grew fast, hitting every milestone right on schedule. Her first smile, her first laugh, her first steps, we were there for all of it. Kate went back to school to get her nursing degree updated for civilian practice, and I found work at a local VA hospital, helping other veterans navigate their way back to civilian life. The nightmares came sometimes. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, back in that cage, back in the jungle, back in the war. But Kate was always there, holding me, reminding me where I was, that I was safe, that I was home. You're here, she'd whisper. You're with me. You're safe. And slowly, over time, the nightmares came less frequently. The war began to feel like something that had happened to someone else, in another lifetime. The scars remained physical and otherwise, but they became part of my story, not the whole story. Martinez and Johnson stayed in touch. We'd get together a few times a year, the three of us and our families, and we'd talk about the old days, about the guys we'd lost, about the missions we'd survived, about how lucky we were to have made it home. You saved our asses more times than I can count, Johnson told me once. Beer in hand, watching our kids play in the yard. That Air Force training of yours. We saved each other, I said. That's what brothers do. Years passed. Hope grew into a smart, beautiful young woman who wanted to be a doctor. Kate and I grew older together, our love deepening with each passing year. We added to our family a son, then another daughter, and our house filled with noise and laughter and life. Sometimes I'd sit on that porch in the evening, watching the sun set over Mobile Bay, and I'd think about how close I'd come to losing all of this, how many times I should have died, how many moments of chance and luck and brotherhood had brought me home. I thought about the men who hadn't made it, about the families who'd gotten telegrams instead of homecomings, about the cost of war and the price of freedom. But mostly, I thought about Kate, about how she'd waited for me, how she'd believed in me, how she'd loved me through the worst of it, about how we'd found each other in hell and built heaven together. I'd survived Vietnam. I'd survived captivity. I'd survived because I had something to come home to, someone to live for. And every day since, I'd tried to make that survival mean something. As I sat there on the porch, Kate came out and settled into the chair beside me, taking my hand in hers like she'd done 1,000 times before. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How lucky I am," I said. "How grateful." She squeezed my hand. "Me too." And in that moment, with the sun setting and my wife beside me and my family safe inside, I knew that I'd finally made it home. Not just to Mobile, not just to America, but home to the life I was meant to live, with the woman I was meant to love. The war had taken a lot from me, but it had also given me Kate, and hope, and this life we'd built together. And that, I thought, was worth surviving for. The end. Thank you for listening to another story by Sylvester Sco. Be sure to like and subscribe to Sco's Media YouTube channel for more stories like this.